beautiful night for baseball in St. Louis. For many of those waiting for Seattle and Baltimore, we're going to get you there as soon as they get the power turned on. But we'll warm it all up for the Mets and the Cardinals in Game 3 of this series. It's also the decisive game. And a pleasant good evening to you. Alongside the former Giant All-Star Bob Brenly, I'm Thom Brennaman. Welcome to Baseball Thursday here on Fox Sports Net. How about the New York Mets? One of the great stories in the National League, Bobby, and they are in a battle for the wild card with the Florida Marlins.
Boy, it's been a great run for the Mets all year. They're surprising everybody, including themselves. The good thing for the Mets is their last 11 games, 9 of them come against Atlanta and Florida. If they can stay close till then, they've got a shot.
You know, they have a real nice blend, the Mets, with youth and veteran leadership. You look around the infield, for example, a couple of guys getting it done all year long, Edgardo Alfonso and Carlos Baerga.
Edgardo Alfonso, people are talking about this guy as the best third baseman in the National League already, and as you mentioned, he's just a young player. He's going to continue to get better, hitting over 300 coming into action tonight. Carlos Baerga, another guy that they pretty much rescued from the scrap heap. People thought he was done, he couldn't play anymore. You're going to see him making a couple of fine defensive plays here. He's also carrying a batting average over 300 going into play tonight.
As far as the Cardinals are concerned, they're 10 behind front-running Houston in the National League Central Division. You know about the big trade for Mark McGwire. We'll talk more about that later. What you may not know is what kind of season Ray Langford is having. It's been remarkable.
Well, he's had a most valuable player type season, considering that he has nobody behind him giving him protection in the lineup and very little production ahead of him in the lineup with the exception of DeLine or DeShields. Langford's doing it all, not only offensively, running the bases, but running down some plays in the outfield. This guy's a complete player. He can do everything you need to do, particularly here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis with the big gaps in the outfield. He can really run them down. And now that he has his protection in the lineup in the form of Big Red, Mark McGwire, he popped a couple of home runs last night. They're going to need a lot more of that from Mark McGwire down the stretch.
Well, they have 3 from McGwire in just the last 2 games. Good pitching matchup tonight. Right-hander Bobby Jones, he was a National League All-Star in search of his 13th win of the season, and he'll be opposed by left-hander Donovan Osborne, looking for win number 3. This is Baseball Thursday on Fox Sports Net. Cardinals and Mets next from Busch. This presentation of Baseball Thursday on Fox Sports Net is brought to you by MCI. Is this a great time or what? By Shell, moving at the speed of light. And by Frost Brewed Coors Light, who reminds you the 3 most important words are, hey, beer man. Our Shell Oil starting lineups for the New York Mets, leading things off in center field, will be Brian McRae batting second and third, Edgardo Alfonso with Olerud at first, Butch Husky in right, Bernard Gilkey in left, Todd Pratt catching, and a latter third of Sean Gilbert at second, Ray Ordonez at short, and Bobby Jones, a right-hander, is on the mound. So we're set to go. Mets and Cardinals in the rubber game of this 3-game series, and Brian McRae, recently acquired from the Chicago Cubs, looks at a strike. We're underway in St. Louis. McRae at 243, 6 home runs, 29 batted in. A down year for him,
to say the least. But things are looking up. Getting out of Chicago, getting an opportunity to come over here and get in the wild card race.
The supply ball at Ronnie Gant in left field, and Donovan Osborne has retired McRae to begin the game. How about Donovan Osborne?
The pitching coach for the Cardinals, Dave Duncan, said this young man has as good a stuff as any left-hander he has ever worked with. That stuff includes a sinking fastball, a cut fastball, occasional curve, a pretty good slider, and a changeup that he is getting more and more confident with every time out there. The changeup will fade down and away from the right-handed hitters. Normally a fly ball pitcher, but if his off-speed stuff is good, you will see a lot of ground balls.
And it's in there, a strike to Edgardo Alfonso. Donovan Osborne back on the 2nd of May, pitching against the Mets at Shea Stadium in New York. Had to leave after 2 innings when he had discomfort in the groin area. It turned out to be a strained groin injury, and he missed a total of 77 games. He just returned on the 29th of July. 0-2 on Alfonso, hitting at 315, and again it's in the air at Ron Gant. Should be an easy play, and it is. 2 up, 2 down in the New York first. Cardinals Cardinals defensively, Gant, Langford, and Mabry. Left, center, and right. The infield of Gaetti and Mark McGuire on the corners. Middle infield of Royce Clayton and Delino DeShields. A battery of Osborne, and also back from the DL is battery mate Thom Pagnozzi.
There you get a look at Big Red. Mark McGuire put on quite a show in batting practice today. Both teams just stopped what they were doing. All the fans that were in the ballpark at the time just stopped where they were and watched the big man go to hack. And he was hitting balls in areas of the upper deck they don't even let people sit in.
A little bit low and into John Olerud. 1 ball and 1 strike. Olerud, a very different hitting first baseman than Mark McGuire. Not a lot of power. The 16 home runs, but he does have 75 batted in. And his former manager, Cito Gaston, said when Olerud was traded to the Mets that he wouldn't be able to handle it mentally in New York. Well, Cito been eating a little crow. Line to the shortstop Clayton, and that'll retire the side. 1, 2, 3, go to Mets. Cardinals bat when we come back. No score in St. Louis.
You're watching Fox Sports Net.
Back at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, and our Shell Oil starting lineups for the Cardinals, managed by Tony La Russa. Leading off at second, Delino DeShields with Royce Clayton at short. Batting third in center field is Ray Langford. Mark McGuire is at first. Ron Gant in left. Gary Gaetti bats sixth at third base. Hitting seventh, catching is Thom Pagnozzi. John Mabry in right will bat eighth. And Donovan Osborne is on the mound. Starting for the Mets, it's been a while since he's won a game. Got off to the great start in April, then the pitcher of the month in the National League in May. Nonetheless, a 12-game winner this season, Bobby Jones.
Well, you have to go all the way back to June 20th to see Bobby Jones' last victory against the Pittsburgh Pirates. His record stood at 12-3 at that time. He's 0-4 with 5 no decisions since then. Contributing factor may be the fact that he's had a sore back. He hasn't really been able to extend through his pitches. Consequently, his breaking ball has not been as sharp. That's his best pitch, an overhand curveball. He also sinks a fastball, throws an occasional changeup, and occasional slider.
Delino DeShields having a terrific season. Looks at a strike. Delino at 288. 9 home runs and 41 runs batted in. And he has 41 stolen bases. That one outside. 1 ball, 1 strike. DeShields obviously can run, and with that in mind, Alfonso a couple of steps in on the grass over at third. Breaking ball drops in there, a called strike.
That's a good early sign for Bobby Jones, able to get his first curveball of the game over the plate. You could see from the amount of break on that pitch, it's a big sweeping curve that goes down and into the left-handed hitters. There's another one in the dirt this time. By far his best pitch when he's getting it over for strikes.
Jones made his first career All-Star appearance July the 8th in Cleveland. That one swung on and fouled off. Pitched a scoreless 8th inning in the National League's 3-1 loss. And he struck out Ken Griffey Jr. and Mark McGuire in the All-Star game.
Now, I'm sure Mark McGuire remembers that at bat in the All-Star game, as does Bobby Jones, and they'll get a chance to see each other again quite often, I'm sure.
One hopper knocked down by Alfonso. He has a strong arm and throws out the speedy DeShields. And again, to give you a look at our Shell Oil starting lineup, John Mabry getting his first start in the last 4 games. Brian Jordan has recently come back off the disabled list, has been given the majority of playing time in right field.
Yeah, it's really just been the last 3 games that Tony La Russa has had intact the lineup he thought he was going to start the season with. Pagnozzi, you mentioned, just coming back. Brian Jordan just returning.
Royce Clayton has been one of the few healthy Cardinals the entire season. He missed his only 2 games of the year last week due to illness. He had played in each of the Redbirds' first 114 games prior to last Friday night. 1-1. Only a .249 average for Clayton, but he's established a new career high for extra base hits with 41. Second on the team in stolen bases. 0-2 on Clayton.
I think Tony La Russa, much like Dusty Baker before him, as a manager, they're trying to find out where Royce Clayton fits into a lineup. He's not your prototypical number 2 hitter. He's not a patient hitter. He doesn't hit the ball the opposite field as much as you would like for a number 2 hitter. But he has enough sock that if you put him at the top of the order, along with his speed, he's a definite offensive threat up higher in the order. Unfortunately, I think he's going to find himself hitting 8th a lot in the future.
Just underway, bottom half of the first inning. Tony La Russa's Cardinals, a tough loss here last night in extra innings. And they're 10 games behind Houston. A much better season for Bobby Valentine. Jones up to the top of the mound, fields cleanly, and throws out Clayton. And the first 2 retired in the St. Louis opening inning. Defensively behind Jones tonight, a few changes. Gilkey, McRae, and Husky left, center, and right. Alfonso and Olerud on the corners. Ordonez at short. Baerga given a night off in place of Sean Gilbert. And their regular catcher, Todd Hundley, a night off in favor of Todd Pratt.
Baerga's had some problems hitting from the left side of the plate, or rather from the right side of the plate, I should say. Giving him a night off tonight against the left-hander. We were even informed that should Baerga be asked to pinch hit in this ball game, chances are it will be as a left-handed hitter, regardless of who's on the mound. That's how much trouble he's having from the right side of the plate right now.
Ray Lankford, 23 home runs, 75 batted in, hits this ball hard to straightaway center field. McRae shy of the track has room, and the inning is over. So the Cardinals, like the Mets, go in order in the first, go to the second, no score. Mets and Cardinals, no score as we head for the second inning. I know many of you out there planning on catching Randy Johnson and Seattle taking on the Baltimore Orioles at Camden Yards tonight. They've had a little power failure in the Baltimore area, or at least inside the ballpark. And when they finally get that one underway, we'll be sending you to that game.
There's got to be a way Randy Johnson's fastball can make some electricity.
I would think. It generates plenty.
Hook some wires up to that fastball. They could probably power the entire city.
Butch Husky to lead it off against Donovan Osborne, and the right-handed hitter takes a low and in. Husky at 279. Had a pretty good year. 14 home runs. 54 runs batted in. And he's getting better as the season goes on. That one in the air, shallow center. And DeShields is drifting back there to make the play, and Husky retired. This season has been a dramatically different story for Bernard Gilkey. Had the monster season a year ago. But this year, a .210 hitter. 11 home runs and 51 runs batted in. Gilkey, a native of St. Louis, and he swings at the first pitch and pops it up. Again, DeShields is there, and the first 2 Mets retired. Donovan Osborne getting the New York hitters to swing at pitches very early in the count.
Well, Osborne has a reputation as a pitcher who will be around the plate. Consequently, a lot of teams are very aggressive against Donovan Osborne. If he's got the good cut fastball and is able to throw his breaking balls for strikes on first pitch, rather than give in with the fastball right down the middle, he'll get a lot of one-pitch outs. A lot of 4, 5, 6-pitch innings. His teams know he's going to be around the plate. They try to be aggressive.
Now to be Todd Pratt filling in for Todd Hundley, who's given the night off. Pratt at 350 and looks at a fastball strike. Hundley, meanwhile, has tied Mike Piazza's major league record for most home runs in consecutive seasons by a catcher. Hundley hit 41 last year, 26 so far this year, as it goes to 0-2 on Pratt. Boy, Hundley has turned into quite an offensive force. 6th in the National League in home runs, 6th in slugging percentage, 7th in RBIs.
Boy, and he gives this Mets team a toughness. You know, a lot of catchers go back there behind the plate, and it's a tough position.
There's a floater in the left center field, a base hit, the first hit by either team tonight.
I was talking to Bruce Benedict, a coach on Bobby Valentine's staff, and Bruce Benedict himself, a catcher, said he has never really seen anybody quite like Todd Hundley. Said the guy seems to play better the more banged up he gets. So the way this season's gone, Todd Hundley should really finish strong because he is banged up pretty good right now.
Well, his daddy was a tough guy, long-time catcher for the Chicago Cubs, Randy Hundley. Sean Gilbert getting the start at second base tonight. Brought up from AAA Norfolk of the International League on August the 11th. It's the third time this season he has been with the Mets and takes down low for a ball. Gilbert had a staph infection in his right knee earlier in the year. Was placed on the disabled list, went back down to AAA where he was a .294 hitter in 67 games. Waves through that off-speed pitch. It's 1-1 to Gilbert.
It's pretty easy to figure out the kind of player Sean Gilbert is just by looking at his minor league numbers. He had some high stolen base totals, 49, 42, 43, 31. And in 1991 was voted the league's best hustler.
Gotta love that.
Gotta love that, because this guy's a scrappy guy that depends on his legs and his hustle to keep him in the big leagues.
I think of any title or any award you could win, that's the one I'd like to have.
Well, based on the fact that everybody can hustle, and if you're the best of the entire league, that's really saying something. I mean, only so many guys can hit home runs, and only so many guys can steal bases, but everybody can hustle, and if you're considered the best, that means something.
2-2 now to Gilbert. He has Pratt at first, 2 down, and no score in the top of the second inning. St. Louis took the opener of this series. The Mets won in extra innings last night. Tonight, the rubber game. Cardinals will stay home and entertain Atlanta over the weekend, while the Mets are headed for Arena Baseball, as our buddy John Franco likes to call it. That means Coors Field in Denver. Slapped down the right field line, but foul.
Well, after getting way out in front of a changeup on the 1-0 pitch, Gilbert now with 2 strikes and a little bit more of a defensive approach as a hitter. Saw him take his last couple rounds of batting practice, and he made a conscious effort to hit the ball to the opposite field, which would certainly be advisable right now. Big hole on that right side of the infield. Delino DeShields kind of cheating up the middle a little bit. You can see that big hole on the right side, and should Osborne throw Gilbert something on the outside part of the plate, he's going to take a shot at that hole.
2-2, the count on Gilbert. Pratt a short lead held by McGuire at first base, and Osborne will send him back to the bag for whatever reason.
Just to stay in shape, Donovan Osborne has a great pickoff move to first base. That was not it. He's not going to waste it on Todd Pratt, but he just wants to make sure that Todd Pratt knows that Donovan Osborne knows that he's over there. He's not going to allow him to get a walking lead and steal a cheap base.
2-2 to Gilbert, and he struck him out. 1 hit, 1 left. Osborne, his first strike out of the game. We head for the bottom of the second. Still no score. No score, bottom half of the second inning. And here comes Mark McGuire. McGuire hit a 455-foot home run to the upper deck in left field last night. The 7th longest at Busch Stadium since 1988. That's when baseball began to measure home run distances. He's hit 3 home runs in the last 2 games, but still only 8 hits since coming over from Oakland to the National League. And that there is where he was hitting them last night, and far beyond that in batting practice today. The only difference is Bobby Jones is on the mound now and not Red Shane. There's a base hit, a little roller into center field, and McGuire aboard to begin the St. Louis second. Cincinnati and San Diego got together today in the 10th inning with Jeff Shaw on the mound. Tony Gwynn, a ground ball to Brett Boone, tries to turn the double play, but Gwynn beats the throw. Romero scores, and San Diego wins it 5-4 to split the 2 games of that series. Small ball by Mark McGuire opens up the 2nd inning, and here's Ron Gant. And another soft liner. This will fall into right field, a hit with McGuire advancing on to 2nd. So the Cardinals back-to-back base hits to open the 2nd inning against Bobby Jones.
Well, McGuire and Gant both, you have the outfield playing very deep because of the power threat that these 2 men provide. And then when you dunk one in like this, it's a little slider right off the end of the bat. Just over the infield, just in front of the outfield. The advantage of being a power hitter, you don't always have to hit it hard to get a hit, because there's so many holes and so many gaps because of the depth that the outfielders play to respect that power.
That's the way they used to play you.
Yeah.
When you were slugging all those home runs for the Giants. And then you just drop one in here, drop one in there every now and then on them to keep them honest.
Obviously, you didn't see a lot of my career, did you?
Well, there might be a little truth to that. Here's Gary Gaetti with 2 on and nobody out. And Gaetti takes Lone away. Gary, a .265 hitter, 12 home runs, 49 batted in. He has not had an extra base hit since the 21st of July when he hit a home run against San Francisco. The 1-0. Fastball paints the outside corner, count even on Gaetti at 1-1.
Well, you can see Gaetti is really geared for something hard from the middle of the plate in. He opens up that front side just a little bit. They call that cheating for the fastball. Wants to make sure he can clear his hips and get to that inside fastball. Consequently, he's very vulnerable to anything off speed outside.
McGuire at 2nd, Gant at 1st. It's low, 2-1 now to Gaetti. Bobby touched on it earlier that Jones has not had a win since he beat the Pirates on the 20th of June.
Well, the Mets with a bluff pickoff at 2nd base just to shorten up McGuire's lead a little bit out there at 2nd. Give their outfielders a chance to perhaps throw him out at home plate if Gaetti gets a base hit to the outfield.
2-1 pitch. Lined in the center field, coming in. McRae makes a diving play. And McGuire alertly gets back into 2nd base. You watch Brian McRae enough, he's among the best defensively in all of baseball.
Particularly on tough plays like this. A sinking line drive directly at him, maybe a little bit to his right. He got a late jump on the ball, but that tremendous speed allowed him to catch up. Misjudged it a little bit at the beginning, started back, froze in his tracks, and then came on strong to make the diving catch.
So now to be Thom Pagnozzi, the St. Louis catcher. Pagnozzi came off the disabled list Tuesday night after missing 93 games with a hip flexor injury. Breaking ball gets away from Pratt, and both runners will advance. McGuire on to 3rd and Ronnie Gant to 2nd.
I'm sure this would be ruled a wild pitch, but this was not a very good effort by Todd Pratt to block this breaking ball in the dirt. As a catcher, when you call for a breaking ball, you have to anticipate that the pitch is going to be in the dirt. You can see that ball's on the outside corner. It almost appeared he was fooled by that pitch. It looked like he started to react to a fastball and then was late catching up to the curve. So I believe he was fooled with that pitch. He had words with Bobby Jones after retrieving that wild pitch, so perhaps there was a cross up there.
Pagnozzi with 2 runners in scoring position, no score in the game, and Jones deals a strike. 1-1 to Pagnozzi. Cardinals have struggled offensively the entire season. Their pitching has been dynamite. No two ways about that. In fact, Tony La Russa said before the game today, when he has everybody healthy in that starting rotation, he'll match them up against anybody, Atlanta included.
Well, you just look at the offensive numbers from the Cardinals this year. If they were capable of doing anywhere near what they have done throughout their careers with the pitching that they've had, you'd have to say the Cardinals would either be in first place or certainly battling Houston for the division lead rather than 10 games out.
Foul back out of play. You know, a lot of the people around here in St. Louis like to talk about the injuries, but I don't know if I'd buy in, Bobby, to a whole lot of that. By and large, they've had Langford healthy. I know he missed the start of the season, but healthy the majority of the year. Ronnie Gant the same. Gaetti, Clayton, and DeShields have been there all year. Brian Jordan has been hurt a great deal in right, but Mabry's been around. And Pagnazzi's been hurt. 2-2 pitch. Breaking ball, chop foul.
Yeah, Pagnazzi has been hurt, but Mike DeFelice and Thom, the two other catchers that handled most of the duty while he was on the disabled list, did a good job. Not a great job, but offensively, I think they provided as much as Pagnazzi would have. The big difference is Thom Pagnazzi's handling of the pitching staff, but you can't even really criticize the backups for that because the pitching has been solid all year.
McGuire at third, Gann at second, one out, 2-2 pitch. Right back to the mound, and they have McGuire caught in a rundown. Jones are running back to third, and the tag is made by Alfonso. So Pagnazzi unable to get the job done. And McGuire is gone at third, 2 away in the inning. And those are the things that the Cardinals have failed at the majority of the year.
Well, base running mistakes just the last couple of days have really cost the Cardinals. Normally, as a runner at third base, you're told to either go on contact or make the ball go through. Even if McGuire was told to go on contact, the tapper back to the mound negates everything. You go back to square one. You should be able to read that tapper back to the mound immediately, and so should the runner at second base. The runner should have held right there, allow him to take the out at first base, but McGuire caught in the rundown. Bobby Jones executed perfectly, ran him back to the bag.
So now it'll be Mabry, a 286 hitter, 5 home runs, just 36 runs batted in. And the pitch from Jones is a little high. Mabry had an RBI on Saturday night. It was his first since the 5th of July.
Well, with Jordan healthy again and the addition of Mark McGuire, his playing time figures to be cut very, very short. Mabry can play left, he plays right, plays a little first base from time to time, and as I mentioned, with Jordan healthy, he's not going to be out there too often.
2-0 delivery, and it's on the outside corner, a called strike.
One thing to keep an eye on in the ball game tonight, Todd Pratt, the backup catcher for the Mets, who's in there tonight, he sets up very early. After giving his sign to the catcher, he moves out. You can see he's already moved out onto the outside corner. These Cardinal base coaches, Rene Latchman III and Dave McKay at first base, are very adept at stealing location from the catcher should you set up too early. And Todd Pratt right now is setting up very early behind home plate.
2 on, 2 out, 3-1 to the 8-hitter Mabry, and he chased one up to go to 3-2. And maybe went after that one, Bobby, knowing the pitcher's on deck.
Well, our friend Joe Morgan told me this years and years ago when we were teammates with the Giants. The number 8 spot in the lineup has to be your smartest hitter because he has to know when to go out of the strike zone and try to drive in a run. When are they going to try to pitch around you with the pitcher on deck? And as a number 8 hitter, you have to constantly be aware of the game situation and whether that team is going to go after you or not.
Runner is on the move. The 3-2 pitch fouled out of play, and it'll stay right there. Although Donovan Osborne is no ordinary hitting National League pitcher, he can swing the bat.
He's batting 200 coming into play today. He's only driven in 1 run, but as you said, Tommy, he doesn't really look like a pitcher at the plate. He gets his hacks in.
And there's ball 4, and Osborne will get a chance to help himself.
Well, Jones tried to go with the big overhand curveball on the 3-2 count. Just a little bit too high for Mabry to offer at. Takes the walk and allows his pitcher, Donovan Osborne, an opportunity to drive in some runs here with 2 outs.
And Donovan Osborne in his career is a .220 hitter. He had a home run last year. and knocked in 10 runs as a batter last season. Been hurt the majority of this year. Bases loaded, 2 out. And he looks at a fast strike right down the gut. Bases loaded for the Cardinals. Scoreless game. Back to the mound. Jones able to handle it, and the inning is over. Cardinals start with a couple of base hits, but leave them loaded. We go to the third. No score in St. Louis.
Kenny Albert back at Camden Yards in Baltimore. The start of the Orioles and the Mariners still delayed due to an electrical malfunction. The lights back behind first base have not yet come on. Now let's head back to St. Louis. Thom Brennaman and Bob Brenly.
Kenny, thank you very much. Family night just about every night here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Truly one of America's great baseball cities.
You'll never see anything quite like it, especially on a weekend series when people are off work and kids are out of school. Everybody wearing red, walking the streets of downtown St. Louis, wasting time until their Cardinals start to play.
Talking the other day with your old buddy, former assistant general manager of the San Francisco Giants, now the expansion coordinator of the Arizona Diamondbacks, Ralph Nelson, and he was reminiscing going back to that '87 series between the Giants and the Cardinals. Said he's never seen anything like it. The sea of red in this ballpark for that clash in the NLCS.
Yeah, exciting times, at least for Giants and Cardinal fans. I don't know, maybe the rest of the National League wasn't as excited about it as we were, but what a great series that was. Went right down to Game 7. And as you mentioned, the fans here in St. Louis turned out in big numbers. Jeffrey Leonard had indicated that this was a cow town.
Yeah.
The fans came out with cowbells for the next game. Hundreds and thousands of cowbells, and that was somewhat of a distraction to the visiting.
Yeah. Ray Ordonez, the New York shortstop, lifts a fly ball to Ray Lankford in center field. And Donovan Osborne has only allowed 1 hit through the first 2 1/3 innings. Has struck out 1, hasn't walked anybody.
Of course, in those days, too, the ball club stayed right across the street at one of the hotels that is literally across the street from the ballpark. And the Cardinals won Game 7 against the Giants in that '87 NLCS. And, of course, the streets were filled with partying fans all night long, and we had to sit there and listen to them celebrate. Not a good feeling.
Couldn't get out of here after the game, huh?
No, we couldn't.
Bobby Jones, a foul ball out of play. And I would assume that, Mr. Brenly, you didn't go down and join him.
No, I didn't, as a matter of fact. I stayed in my room with several of my teammates commiserating what could have been. We had our bags packed ready to go to Minnesota. Of course, the Cardinals played the Twins that year in the World Series, and we felt we matched up very well against the Twins. We had a power-laden lineup that year, and we could have homered with them in the dome up there, but now we'll never know.
You're right about that. 0-2 to Bobby Jones. Well, that was quite a fierce rivalry as well. A lot of brawling, mixing it up every now and then.
Well, it all started at the top. We had 2 very headstrong managers with Whitey Herzog for the Cardinals and Roger Craig with the Giants, and they knocked heads, and consequently their players knocked heads with the opposition, and the fans knocked heads with the fans, and turned into quite the rivalry in the late '80s.
McGuire handles a ground ball off the bat of Bobby Jones, and Donovan Osborne has retired the first 2 here in the 3rd inning. Big crowd on a cool summer evening by August standards here in St. Louis. Game time temperature only 78 degrees. Well, we were here 2 weeks ago, and down on the field it was better than 130.
Quite a difference. I've only sweat through 2 shirts so far today.
Yeah, the humidity's still way up there. Here's Brian McRae, flied out to Gannon, left field his first time. This one on the ground at the Shields, and Osborne has his 2nd perfect inning of the night. Cardinals back, bottom of the 3rd, a scoreless game. You and I will be handling the call on that Cleveland-Seattle game, and the Tribe continues to struggle in a mammoth way.
Boy, everybody was making fun of the National League Central all year, how mediocre the teams were, and 500 would win the division, and you look up and the Houston Astros have a better record than the Cleveland Indians do right now.
Delano DeShields to face Bobby Jones in the third, and it's strike one. DeShields hit a hard one-hopper down at Edgardo Alfonso, who was able to knock it down and threw out DeShields by a couple of steps. A ball, a strike.
Well, Alfonso at third base has to respect Delano DeShields' speed and his ability to dump down a bunt, so he's playing well in on the grass.
And a two-hopper right at him. DeShields retired for the second time on the ground ball at Alfonso. White Sox begin the night 2.5 behind Cleveland, and they're taking on Oakland. A big hurt gives Willie Adams some hurt. His 28th of the year, and the A's lead 3-2 in the third. That is the 250th home run in the career of Frank Thomas.
There's a little concern. We did the game last Saturday in Seattle, the White Sox against the Mariners, and Frank Thomas pulled up lame rounding third base, scoring on a base hit. Strained a hip flexor. Wasn't sure how long he was going to be out of the lineup, but apparently it's not bothering him that much.
Well, you don't have to worry about it if you're trotting around the bases. High one-hopper at Alfonso. Plants throws, and Clayton retired. 2 up, 2 down in the St. Louis third inning of a scoreless game.
Yeah, both teams being very aggressive at the plate. Bobby Jones has shown early in the going here that he's going to be around the plate as well as Donovan Osborne, so both teams offensively being aggressive. Swinging at a lot of early count pitches, putting them in play and letting the defense work behind the pitchers.
Ray Lankford has been bothered of late by a strained left hamstring. In fact, he missed 7 games last week. But 23 home runs, 2 more than his season total from a year ago as he looks at a strike, and he's only 2 short of his career high of 25 home runs set back in '95. Ranks among the National League leaders in batting average, homers, on base and slugging percentage, and 54 extra base hits.
And we talked about the injuries to Brian Jordan and some other members of the Cardinals this year, and we mentioned at the top of the show how amazing those numbers are considering he's got nobody hitting behind him until recently.
Alfonso, a tough try, and throws out Lankford racing up the line to end the inning. 3 balls at Alfonso, 3 outs, no score after 3.
Back in Baltimore, we are told stadium officials have identified the problem regarding the lights. They're trying to turn the lights on in stages, and they are making progress with each attempt. So we will keep you posted as we get set for the Orioles and the Mariners here at Camden Yards. Now back to St. Louis, Thom Brennaman and Bob Brenly.
Kenny, thanks again. Hopefully that game will be getting started pretty soon. Here it's no score at the end of 3. Good pitchers duel tonight. We expected as much. Donovan Osborne and Bobby Jones. And a breaking ball is inside to Edgardo Alfonso, who begins things in the 4th. He flied to left his first time up. Popped up right side of the infield at Delano DeShields. 1 away. I don't know, Bobby. I've always bought into a lot of the conspiracy theories that float around on a number of different topics. Are you buying into that deal about Baltimore and the power outage tonight, knowing that Randy Johnson is starting for Seattle?
Well, stranger things have happened in the game of baseball. You may recall in the past when Maury Wills and the Dodgers came into a town, miraculously, without rain, the field would be covered with mud. So the home team has a way to manipulate things occasionally, and turning off the power to the entire eastern seaboard, you know, why not?
Why not?
Just to dodge the big unit, I guess.
Well, you know, a lot of the politicians root for the Baltimore Orioles. There's a lot of pull there in that region of the country, Baltimore being so close to D.C. I don't know. You never know. Olerud, a sharp ground ball under the glove of Clayton, and that'll roll into center field. We'll see how that one will be scored, and they're scoring it a base hit. Wow.
The ball was hit very crisply, just a step or so to Royce Clayton's left. See that ball scooting right there? He just doesn't get his glove down in a position to make a play. I think that definitely should have been an error right there. Donovan Osborne shouldn't be penalized for throwing a ground ball that was hit that closely to the shortstop. Apparently, they've changed their mind as well. It's now an E6.
Bob Brenly. Lots of pull here in St. Louis. It is an error on Clayton. That is his 10th of the year, and here is Butch Husky. Fastball outside and high. The official scorer here at Busch Stadium, Jack Herman, took a look at that more than likely on the replay and said, my gosh, Donovan Osborne should not be penalized for that.
You know, it doesn't really matter. You hear a lot of people say, well, he didn't touch it. How can it be an error? According to the official scores, if a man can field the ball with a normal effort, it should be an error.
Chance for a double play, and it is. Gaetti DeShields on to McGuire to end the inning. An error, none left. 3.5 in the books. No score.
This Sunday is Epic Pharmacy's Harvest for Health Day at Camden Yards. Donate personal care items such as soap, toothpaste, or shampoo at any entrance gate to help people in need, or call 1-800-965-EPIC.
It's a sizzling season on Fox. Big league action just the way you want it. Home team's Fox attitude.
Best of the bigs. Rocks on Fox.
The Orioles, ready to play all season long on HTS. HTS on fire this August. The Orioles ready for the playoff drive with 14 games against the best. Griffey, McGuire, the Mariners, the Mets, DC United. The race for the playoff begins now with 6 games. Warthog Soccer, 3 games. Plus motorsports, tennis, ABPB ball, and the return of college football. Oh yeah, this is hot stuff. HTS ready to play all August long.
You've got to read to know the score. 1 out of every 4 adults in Maryland cannot read well enough to enjoy a good book or complete a job application. Help strike out adult illiteracy by participating in reading, runs, and Ripken. Make a pledge for every RBI that Cal hits this season and help support the Baltimore Reads literacy programs. Baltimore Reads gives adults the education they need to improve their lives. To make a pledge, call Baltimore Reads at 410-752-3595.
MCI trivia question. The first game in New York Mets franchise history was April 11th, 1962 here in St. Louis. Who are the winning and losing pitchers in that game? Give you a while to think about it. Mark McGuire had a single into center field his first time up. At a strike. McGuire batting in the cleanup spot. Came over in the big deal from Oakland. As it goes to 1-1, and we were talking a little bit before the game with some of the folks that follow the Cardinals on a day in and day out basis, and like many around the world of baseball in general, they believe that the Cardinals may have waited too long in bringing over Mark McGuire. 2-1 pitch, and a fastball misses outside. Had a chance to catch up with Walt Jocketty, the general manager of the Redbirds, before the game. And they have every intention of trying to sign Mark McGuire, a free agent at the end of the year, as he has taken a walk to open up the fourth. A tough decision for Walt Jocketty. Already the team payroll is close to $45 million. They have a number of key players that will be going to arbitration, so you know their salaries will go up. And then there's the question of their ace, Andy Bennis, a free agent at the end of the year. Technically, Bennis has an option that he could pick up, but that more than likely will not happen. He can make a lot more money in the open market. So the Cardinals more than likely will be an either-or situation. Either Bennis comes back, McGuire doesn't, or the reverse, keeping both of them. Probably not going to happen.
Well, the Cardinals pitching, as we mentioned, has been solid all year long. Andy Bennis has been a big part of that pitching staff, but when you've got that thumper in the middle of your order, especially if guys like Ron Gant, Brian Jordan, if those guys come back and have normal years, not career years, but just normal years, what they're capable of doing with that man in the middle of the order, I think the Cardinals would be a team to be reckoned with next year. I think Andy Bennis can be replaced in that rotation.
Ronnie Gant behind 0-2. He singled to right field his first time up. And a breaking ball low and away. It begs a question, though, Bob, and we saw it firsthand with the Cubs a number of years ago, when you let the quote-unquote ace walk out, and now everybody else in the rotation has to move up a spot. And rather than being the 2 starter, now they're number 1. As Gant is out of there swinging. 1 away in the inning. First strikeout of the game for Bobby Jones.
Gant's traditionally been a middle-in fastball hitter. Jones gets him on a slider down low and away. You can see Ron Gant was not even close to that pitch. He's really conscious of that inside fastball and just can't reach pitches on the outside part of the plate unless he's looking out there. And Ron Gant's not the kind of hitter to look for a pitch away. He wants something middle in he can pull, much like this man, Gary Gaetti.
Gant now 125 strikeouts. 3rd in the National League in a category you don't want to see your name in. But, Bobby, back to what you were talking about with Andy Bennis. Do you think these young Cardinals, meaning the pitching staff falling in line behind him, are ready to make that next step up?
I believe they are. I think Donovan Osborne, if healthy, can be a guy that you can look to as a number 1. Really, that role, the number 1 starter, it only happens opening day. After that, the rotation just falls into place, and one game is no more important than another game. So I think it's, like I said, I think it would be easier to replace a guy like Andy Bennis, who, although he's had a good year, he's basically one of those pitchers that's going to give you a lot of innings, be a few games over 500 at the end of the season. I think they can get that either from their organization or from somebody they already have at the major league level, plug them into the rotation. They can make up those numbers. But you have to have the thunder in the lineup. In the past, the Cardinals didn't need a power hitter. They had speed at every position. They could steal bases. They could create runs with their legs. This Cardinals team, although it has great speed, is not that kind of a team. They need that thumper in the middle to get respect, to get protection for Ray Langford and the guys hitting up at the top of the order.
2-1 on Gaetti. McGuire on at first. Swung at a pitch up over his head. 2-2.
That's what happens when a hitter, as we mentioned, it's geared fastball inside. He gets a fastball inside, but it's high out of the strike zone. He's so anxious to get that pitch and drive it into left field that he goes out of the zone to chase a pitch up around his shoulders. Best pitch you can throw a fastball hitter is a fastball somewhere he can't hit it, because it's tough to lay off of.
See if he comes back with another one. Setting up away is Pratt. Drilled into straightaway center field, but McRae is there, and there are 2 down in the inning as McGuire goes back into first base.
Well, there's a guy that used to be an instigator for the Cardinals back in the early to mid to late 80s, Willie McGee. Great speed on the bases. Slap hitter, just tried to pound the ball off a home plate and run as fast as he could. Many other Cardinals, Ozzie Smith, Ronnie Smith, Vince Coleman, right on down the line. We used to call them a track team with badminton rackets. They couldn't knock the ball out of the infield with the bat, but once they got on first base, they were going to score in 4 pitches.
And you were the guy that was behind the plate trying to throw him out.
Boy, I'll tell you, that was a nightmare. Coming in here playing the Cardinals on turf.
Line right at Alfonso off the bat of Pagnazzi to end the inning. A leadoff walk goes to waste, and to 4. Still no score, the Mets and the Cardinals. Our MCI trivia question asked you a moment ago, the first game in Mets history right here in St. Louis. Who are the winning and losing pitchers? You knew the answer to this one, Bob Brenly.
Oh, of course I did. The losing pitcher was a former manager of mine, Roger Craig. Winning pitcher, Larry Jackson. I can even tell you who hit the first home run.
Who's that?
That would be Gil Hodges in the 4th inning against Larry Jackson. Of course, that followed the first hit by Gus Bell, a 2nd inning single off of Larry Jackson.
Wow, how about those names? Gil Hodges, Gus Bell. Gus Bell has a grandson playing here tonight. Not in the lineup for the Cardinals, but David Bell, the son of Detroit manager and terrific Major League third baseman Buddy Bell.
Of course, I knew all that right off the top of my head.
I know you did. Are you kidding me?
The miracle of media guides. As long as you know where to look.
That was the year that Casey Stengel managed the Mets to a 40-120 record. Lost 120 games. Lost 111 the second year. 109 their third year. 112 their fourth year. 95 in year 5, and then right back to triple digits again, 101. And then lo and behold, just 7 years later, a World Series title, the Miracle Mets.
Well, there you see the 28 strikes as opposed to 7 balls. That would indicate that the Mets are being aggressive at the plate. They're going up there hacking because they know Osborne's going to be around the plate. You know, I don't know if there was ever a team that had as much fun losing that many games as the Casey Stengel Mets.
You got that right.
I mean, you had to be able to laugh.
Hammered down the line into the corner by the former Cardinal Gilkey. And the St. Louis native on his way to second with a stand-up double to open the New York fifth. And he becomes the first Met of the game to reach second base.
Well, Gilkey has no doubt had his problems this year, hitting .210 coming into play tonight. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he is a hacker up there at the plate. He got a fastball up and in and just fought it off, pulled it down the left field line. He doesn't have the fluid mechanical swing that a lot of hitters in the big leagues. He just gets up there. He's got a buggy whip hitch. He's got that front leg up in the air. He's just hacking at whatever he sees. Those kind of guys are hard to correct when they fall into hard times.
So now the batter, Todd Pratt, and the New York catcher takes low and away for a ball. A leadoff double here in the fifth. Scoreless game between the Mets and Cardinals, and Pratt trying to move the runner over by hitting it to the right side, fouls it off that way.
So Pratt's going to take a shot to the right side, at least until he gets up to 2 strikes. But that's not his strong point. He's a big, strong guy. He likes to reach out and pull the ball as well, no matter where it's at on the plate. Of course, there's the man he's replacing in the lineup tonight, Todd Hundley. See that sleeve on the right elbow, one of a number of injuries that Todd Hundley's been nursing this summer.
1-1 to Pratt. And knocked down by Osborne, who can't find it. Still doesn't know where it is, over near Mark McGwire, and that's an infield hit for Pratt. So not only does he reach, he advances Gilkey down to third. And New York runners on the corners and nobody out here in the fifth.
Well, this is a rarity. Todd Pratt getting an infield hit. He does his job. He's trying to hit it behind the runner. He gets an off-speed pitch and manages to stay back long enough to hit it up the middle. And you could see Osborne had no idea where that ball went after it hit him. It's coming right back up the middle. Appeared to hit him on that right ankle, right shin area. And you can see Todd Pratt hustling down that line with perhaps his first career infield hit. There aren't very many of those anyway. If that's not the first one, that's one of a very few.
So now it'll be Sean Gilbert. He struck out against Osborne back in the second inning. Gilkey at third, Pratt on at first, nobody out. Took a hack and fouled it straight back.
Gilbert's a little upset with himself. He got a pitch he wanted to hit, something up high in the strike zone that he could hit in the air to the outfield and drive that run home. Got the fastball up around the letters, just couldn't get on top of it, fouled it straight back.
Donovan Osborne in trouble with Gilkey at third and Pratt on at first. None out here in the New York fifth. And the 0-1 on Gilbert is popped up. This will not bring the run in. DeShields is there, and Gilbert retired. Everybody stays put. Boy, that could be a huge out. You have a number 8 hitter coming up, and then the pitcher, Bobby Jones.
You can be sure they're going to pitch Ordonez carefully, although at 235 he's not the huge threat to drive that run home from third base, but with his speed at the plate, even a slow hit ground ball, he should be able to leg out the relay to first and get that run home.
Ordonez has only bounced into 9 double plays all year. Runner still on the corners. Now 1 out. And Osborne works out of the stretch and goes to work on Ordonez. And he bunts it. Ordonez is going to reach on an infield hit and drive in Gilkey from third, giving New York a 1-0 lead. Alert play there by Ordonez. Done on his own, unquestionably, and pushed it right by Osborne to bring in the game's first run.
Well, a man has got to know his limitations. Ray Ordonez figured that he had a better opportunity to drive home Gilkey with a well-placed bunt than he did by swinging away at the plate. Osborne tried to make the diving stop of the bunt, wasn't able to come up with it. Gilkey with a great jump at third. I don't think this was a suicide squeeze. I think this was just a bunt for a base hit. If it finds a hole in the infield, then Gilkey can walk home, and that's exactly what happened.
But Bobby Valentine has done a lot of that this season. He doesn't manage by the so-called book. So now it's Jones, and they're figuring on him bunting. With Pratt at second base, Ordonez on at first, and 1 out. As the Mets have broken a scoreless game, a 1-0 lead here in the 5th inning. And Jones does shorten up and bunts it foul.
You know, you mentioned that Bobby Valentine does not play according to the book. I think the only time you play according to the book is if you have the right matchups. If you have guys who can do the things that go along with what the book says you're supposed to do, then you play it straight up. If you've got a team that's maybe a little erratic, a little streaky, hot and cold, a guy like Ordonez who doesn't really drive the ball to the outfield, do the unexpected. Forget the book. Do what you have to do with the talent that you have available. Cookie Rojas, the third base coach, with a few words for Bobby Jones. I'm sure this had to do with placement of the bunt.
Well, you know, Bobby, guys who manage by the book all the time, a couple of things generally hold true. They do that so they can cover themselves in answering questions by the media after the game. And generally, they don't hang around very long as managers.
Well, I think more importantly is the first point you brought up. Answering the questions after the game. Why didn't you bunt?
Breaking ball, strike 2, and Jones wasn't bunting there.
Well, Gaetti had really shortened up at third base after the first pitch. He was breathing right down Bobby Jones' neck at home plate. Cookie Rojas probably told him if he doesn't back up, go ahead and take a hack at it. But Jones took the pitch for a strike anyway. Now we'll see what they decide to do on this 2-strike pitch. I would guess bunt again.
Takes high, 1 ball, 2 strikes.
And I would have been wrong. Of course, that's by the book. Bobby Jones, not a great hitting pitcher. He can put the ball in play. Struck out 15 times on the season. I just think Bobby Jones, like a lot of major league pitchers, is more adept at bunting the ball than he is hitting the ball. I'd rather take my chances even with 2 strikes of him putting down a sacrifice bunt.
1-2 delivery, and he swings away and didn't get it. He's out of there on strikes. Strikeout number 2 for Donovan Osborne. Runner still at first and second, and back to the top of the order in Brian McRae. McRae also part of a baseball family. His father, Al McRae, terrific player. Wow, was he something. Especially before he broke his ankle. I mean, he went on to get a lot of hits with Kansas City, but when he played with the Reds coming up initially, he could fly. And now Hal, the hitting coach for the Philadelphia Phillies. Two on, 2 out. And 1 run home. 2 balls and no strikes to McRae.
You can almost sense a difference in just his facial expressions. Brian McRae around the ballpark, and his concentration at the plate. He seems to be a completely different player than we saw earlier this season with the Cubs.
McRae 0 for 2 tonight and swings away and fouls it off.
People that followed the Cubs on a daily basis earlier this season said there were times that Brian McRae would step out of the batter's box and talk to his bat. And I guess every hitter in the major league has done that at one time or another, but usually not in public. But when things are going bad, it can really get inside your head. And Had Brian McRae talking to himself in Chicago this summer. Much more relaxed now here with the Mets.
They gave up a good player in Lance Johnson, but McRae a much younger version in center field. 2-1 pitch. This is going to be a tough play for Gaetti. He's not going to get McRae at first. And he throws back. They nearly got Pratt. Infield hit, and Pratt lucky to get back into third.
Well, you could almost see that coming. Gary Gaetti knew he had no play on Brian McRae at first base. The slow hit ball down the third base line. Gaetti, the veteran that he is, fakes the throw to first and wheels around Royce Clayton that slid in behind Todd Pratt at third base. There you see Pratt going behind Gaetti. Clayton not far behind. The fake to first, the wheel around, throw back to third base, and Pratt just does get back in under the tag. Jim Quick right there with the call.
So now the base is loaded for Edgardo Alfonso, who is 0 for 2, is fly to left and popped to second. And that is smoked foul down the left field line.
Well, the Mets have parlayed a double and 3 infield hits into a run here.
Boy, first the Cardinals try to get him, now his own teammate.
It's a bullet right down the line. You can see Todd Pratt leading off in foul territory. If he's hit with that line drive, it's a foul ball. If he's in fair territory, he's out. That's why the runner leads off in foul territory down that third baseline.
Bases loaded for the Mets. 2 away, and the 0-1 is high and tight on Alfonso. Alfonso, 51 runs batted in this season. Finally given the chance to play every day. Jimmy Leland, the manager of the Marlins, told us a couple of weeks ago he believes this kid's one of the best 5 young players in the game today, either league. He looks at a strike.
Well, we've had very few opportunities to see these Mets this year, but every time we've had the Mets, Edgardo Alfonso has done something to impress us. A great arm at third base, great hands, very quick first step, and he can swing that bat.
1-2 pitch, and he stays alive by fouling it off. Alfonso, 42 RBIs in his last 80 games, has Pratt at third, Ordonez at second with an RBI, and over at first, Brian McRae. All 3 runners aboard have reached via infield hits, as Bobby mentioned. 2 down, 1 and 2 on Alfonso. And a high drive into left field, way back, could be a grand slam, and it is. Edgardo Alfonso, home run number 8, and now has 55 runs batted in. New York leads 5-0.
We said Alfonso will do something to impress you. Very intelligent at bat right there. The pitch before the grand slam, he got a breaking ball down and in, kept his hands back very well, just fought it off, hit the ball into foul territory. Osborne came back with the same pitch again, this time a little bit higher. That breaking ball hangs up over the inside part of the plate. Alfonso with a line drive over the fence in left field.
And he knew it as soon as he hit it.
You can see he just kept his hands back. His weight was back. He wasn't fooled at all by the pitch. Had a real good look at it.
The New York Mets. Most people going into the season picked this team to finish by and large no better than third in the National League's Eastern Division. Yet here they are in third, but only 3 games behind the Florida Marlins in the wild card race. Marlins are off tonight. They'll open a series at home tomorrow against the Pirates. 3-1 on John Olerud. Olerud is lined to short, reached on an error, and this one driven into left center field. On the run is Langford. He'll get there to retire the side. But Edgardo Alfonso with the bases loaded and 2 down on a 1-2 pitch from Donovan Osborne. A grand slam home run. Middle of the 5th, 5-0 Cardinals lead 5-0. White Sox and Oakland, meanwhile, getting together in Chicago. Matt Stairs a 2-run bomb off Carlos Castillo. Makes it 5-2 A's. They're now in the bottom of the 4th inning. Stairs, 18 home runs.
Well, if you've ever had a chance to see Matt Stairs play, there's a saying, the guy just doesn't get cheated. He swings at every pitch like it might be the last chance he ever gets to swing it back.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't leave anything in the bag.
And he gets the job done more times than not. Here's John Mabry. Looks at a strike, and he's behind 0-2. He'll be followed by the pitcher, Donovan Osborne. No activity right now in the St. Louis bullpen, and Osborne is in the on-deck circle. Mabry fouls it out of play.
It'll be interesting to see how long Tony La Russa chooses to go with Donovan Osborne, already trailing 5-0. This is only his 4th start since coming back from the DL. He'd thrown 15 innings in his 3 starts before this. Really don't know how long they want to stretch him out since he's already trailing by 5 runs.
One hopper at Ordonez, and he's only committed 4 errors all season long.
Well, that truly is amazing for a shortstop like Ordonez, who makes the acrobatic play. He covers a lot of ground at shortstop. He gets the balls that many shortstops don't get to. Usually those kind of defensive players make more errors because they get to more balls than other players do. But Ordonez covers all the ground, makes the flashy plays, and doesn't make the errors.
Osborne will bat. He bounced to the mound, leaving the bases loaded, ending the 2nd inning. And blisters this one into center field, a base hit.
Well, he would have loved to have that base hit back in the 2nd inning when he had some ducks on the pond and a chance to do some damage and take a lead in the ball game, but pitchers take their hits wherever they can get them.
You had an interesting theory at dinner tonight with all this talk of realignment and what will happen with the DH. Would you care to share that with the rest of us?
Well, I hadn't really thought it through completely.
That's very clear.
But just my preliminary thought was have the DH and let the pitcher hit. Have 10 hitters. That way you have the designated hitter for people who like to see guys like Paul Molitor and others that hang around, Eddie Murray, the guys that hang around in DH at the end of their career. You get to see those guys play, but yet you also get the strategy involved with having a pitcher in the lineup to deal with.
Well, what do you at home think about that one for a while?
I probably should have thought about it for a while, but it's out there now. Let's see.
There's actually some validity there. I don't know how much, but there is some there. I mean, that is the one argument National League fans take enormous exception to when the topic of the DH is brought up about the strategy being taken away from the game. Runner going, and a 2-0 pitch is taken. A strike. Throw is not in time, and Osborne steals the base. That's his first steal of the year.
Well, it just caught everybody by surprise right there. You don't anticipate a pitcher taking off and stealing a base, especially when he's trailing in the ball game by 5 runs, but if the opposing team is going to give it to you, why not take it? Bobby Jones with very little attention paid to Osborne over at first base. You can see Ordonez was caught by surprise. He was on the dead run getting to second base to cover.
Long drive way back into line of the Shields has hit a 2-run bomb. His 10th of the year.
Double figures in home runs for Delino DeShields. Surprising power for that man. I think in the past he got caught up in that trap of thinking that he couldn't drive the ball if a pitcher made a mistake on him, and he gets a fastball up and inside. Even though he's choked up on that bat, he knows it's gone as soon as he hits it.
So the Cardinals now down by 3. 1 out, nobody on after the 2-run home run from DeShields. Has now 43 runs batted in to go along with those 10 home runs. Bouncing ball will roll foul.
You know, some guys, little guys, DeShields that are counted on to get on base and steal and set the table for the big guys behind them. Many times they fall into that trap of taking a pitch like DeShields just hit out of the ballpark and trying to inside out it and hit a single to left field or slap the ball on the ground, which is what DeShields should do most of the time. But when a pitcher makes a bad mistake on you, if it's a pitch you think you can drive, go ahead and let it fly. And DeShields, with his 10th home run of the season, did just that.
Clayton went too far, and the count now goes to 1-2. Line drive, left field. It'll fall in front of Gilkey. Third hit of the inning against Bobby Jones. No activity in the Mets bullpen.
Oh, what a difference one inning makes. Both these pitchers were cruising along, well in command of their games, their respective games, holding down the opposition. Quite nice. Bob Apodaca, the pitching coach, out to have a word with Bobby Jones and Todd Pratt. And now all of a sudden the wheels seem to have fallen off here in the 5th inning for both starters. And you can see no activity, at least nothing constructive down there yet. A lot of conversation. Some of it may even have to do with baseball. Some of it. Now, this is about the time of the game when the bullpen normally starts to get it in gear down there. The starters well in command through the first 4 innings of a game. Everybody kind of relaxes. The long relievers relax a little bit, getting away from their time of the game. Middle relievers start to gear it up a little bit, looking at who's coming up in the lineup.
Ray Lankford, the batter. We're getting into the heart of the St. Louis order. 3 consecutive hits. A single by Osborne, a 2-run homer by DeShields, now a single by Clayton, and Lankford looks at a breaking ball strike. Lankford can run. So too can Clayton at first base. He has 20 steals on the year.
And Jones really taking a lot off his curveball at times. That last pitch that he threw to Ray Lankford for a called strike was a curveball clocked at 70 miles an hour, which is a very slow breaking ball. A good pitch to steal on if Clayton can guess right in the count.
0-1 pitch. Fastball high and away.
Jones has to be careful when he does throw a curveball to Lankford, because that pitch normally is going to end up down low and usually towards the inside part of the plate because of the natural movement on the right-hander's curve, and down and in is a zone that Lankford handles well.
Throw a fastball right by him there.
Now, normally a 1-2 count. This is a situation where a pitcher, if he has a good breaking ball, this is where you try to throw a nasty breaking ball and have it bounce right on home plate. Give the appearance of it being a strike and then fall down out of the zone, and it's a good pitch to run on.
Came with a fastball up and got Lankford swinging and missing. Jones records his second strikeout and the second out of the inning. Mark McGwire would like to ditto the show he put on in batting practice before the game when everybody was watching the big redhead. And he was hammering away. Butch Husky watching as he sent it into the upper tier of the upper deck. Just one of many by McGwire.
Well, the thing about McGwire in batting practice is he hits balls in places where nobody else hits them, ever. Not in batting practice, not in the game. I don't think he could hit a golf ball up there where he's hitting some of those home runs in batting practice.
McGwire, 3 home runs in the last 2 games. He had a couple here last night. Tonight he singled and walked. And the 1-0. Swing and a miss. Corey Lytle, the right-hander, beginning to get loose in the New York bullpen. Cardinals had struck for a couple of runs here in the bottom of the 5th after the Mets got 5 in the top of the inning. Fastball missed the outside edge. 2-1 on Mark McGwire. McGwire, 38 home runs all told on the year. 34 with the A's and 4 with St. Louis. And a fastball right down the middle.
Well, McGwire himself said it was going to be a tough adjustment in the National League, and I'm quoting him. He says, the pitchers throw a lot more strikes than I've seen. I've seen more 1, 2, 3 innings than I have in 11 years in the American League. The games are much quicker. You know when you go to the plate, you have to be aggressive.
Sums it up quite well. And now he's gone 3-2 with Bobby Jones. Let's look in on Todd Pratt. Fastball, they're going to challenge McGwire in. And he pops it up, way up. Gilkey coming in from left field, and the inning is over. Cardinals get a couple of runs, leave a man, end of 5-2 New York.
Next.
5-2 ball game. Mets leading as we move to the 6th inning at Busch Stadium. Is this a great time or what? Earlier tonight, these folks from Westlake, Ohio, the Buckeye State, joined us at the Seattle-Baltimore game. Here's your chance to win a trip for 2 to next week's Baseball Thursday game in New York. Compliments of Fox Sports Net and MCI. Just dial the MCI toll-free number, 888-216-4450. And you can be randomly selected to join us next week. Again, 888-216-4450. Baseball Thursday and MCI. Is this a great time or what? And there's your number to dial. Bob Brenly has slipped off the headset. He wants to go check that one out next week in the Big Apple. We're on our way there tomorrow. Butch Husky down 0-2. We'll have a chance on Saturday to call the Texas Rangers and the New York Yankees. High to Husky, and for the time being anyway, Hideki Irabu has climbed out of George Steinbrenner's
Murahachibu.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we did a game earlier this year when Irabu was signed by the Yankees, and fortunately or unfortunately for us, however you look at it, there were some representatives from the Japanese media at the game, and we asked them, how do you say doghouse in Japanese, in the event that Irabu struggled. And as near as they could figure, Murahachibu is comparable to doghouse in Japanese.
And I have a feeling, for those of you that watch the game this Saturday, you might hear that again. Uptight to Husky, 2-2. The multilingual Bob Brenly in the booth.
Unfortunately, English is not one of the languages I have a good command of.
2-2 to Husky. And the count has gone full. Husky will be followed by Gilkey and then Pratt. Osborne gave up 5 runs, 4 of them on one swing of the bat by Edgardo Alfonso in the 5th inning. Fouled away by Husky. It'll stay 3-2.
Well, one guy who is not in the doghouse, Greg Colburn, first baseman, right-handed hitter for the Minnesota Twins, was traded to the Atlanta Braves today.
Wow.
For a player to be named later. Goes from the Minnesota Twins and 10 games back in the standings to the first place Atlanta Braves.
Pretty good deal for Greg Colburn. An early Christmas present. There's ball 4 to Husky. First walk of the game issued by Donovan Osborne.
Yeah, that's something that Dave Duncan, the pitching coach, and Tony La Russa, the manager of the Cardinals, are going to have to keep an eye on. Well documented through the first 3-4 innings of this ball game. Donovan Osborne was right around the plate, throwing a lot of strikes, getting ahead of the hitters. The Mets hitters were being very aggressive as Dave Duncan looks on. Now Osborne falls behind and then walks Butch Husky.
And he used his MCI calling card to dial the bullpen because there's activity down there. That one slapped foul and out of play. Saw a moment ago there, John Frascatore, the right-hander, beginning to get loose. He pitched an inning and a third, and scoreless baseball last night. They still haven't started in Baltimore, and many of you waiting to watch the Mariners and the Orioles will have it for you if and when they ever get the electricity going at Camden Yards. Maybe somebody forgot to pay the bill.
I had a chance to see Randy Johnson pitch last Friday in Seattle. Struck out 19 Chicago White Sox and was getting stronger as the game went on. Fastball was clocked around 92, 93 early in the game, 96, 97 in the 8th inning.
1-1 pitch. Gilkey, a high drive into left field. Gant drifting back at the warning track makes a play. And Husky retreats back to first base. Mets leading 5-2. We're in the top of the 6th inning, and here's Todd Pratt. Single to left center field in the 2nd inning, an infield hit and scored on the Alfonso grand slam 1 inning ago.
Well, you might have had a good look there. Tom Pagnozzi flashed 3-3-3, which is not a sign you would normally give to a pitcher with only a runner at first base, and Osborne stepped off the rubber. Apparently that's the sign from the catcher to the pitcher to step off the rubber.
A little bit low, 1-0, the count on Pratt.
Usually the manager or the pitching coach will have signs they relay to the catcher, and the catcher relays to the pitcher as to whether to step off, throw over, or pitch out.
Like to welcome those of you with Midwest Sports Channel and Nesson who are watching the Red Sox and the Twins tonight. Boston winning that game 6-1, along with Bob Brenly and our entire Fox Sports Net crew. I'm Thom Brennaman. Glad to have you with us. New York 5 runs in the 5th inning. An RBI butt single by Ray Ordonez brought in the first run, and then a grand slam slugged by Edgardo Alfonso made it 5-0. In the bottom of the inning, Delino to Shields, a 2-run home run to right. So you're caught up. Runner going. And it's hit into right center field. Langford, a long run, not going to get there. It'll go to the wall. Rounding third and scoring is Husky. And Todd Pratt filling in for the regular catcher, Todd Hundley, has 3 hits, now a run batted in. And it extends the New York lead to 4 at 6-2.
Well, that's about as good of a hit and run as you can get right there. Butch Husky was off and running at first base. Todd Pratt just wants to put this ball in play, preferably on the ground, gets a low pitch and manages it to get it in the air. Husky was off and running with the pitch, had rounded second base. Langford was getting close to the ball. But as a runner on that play, you're not going to make it back to first base anyway, so you might as well just keep running, and that's what Husky did and scored easily on the double by Todd Pratt.
And he sends Donovan Osborne running back into the St. Louis clubhouse. Osborne will leave after 5 1/3 innings, having surrendered 7 hits and so far 6 earned runs. Mets lead by 4. Back in a moment. Kenny, thanks again, and again to repeat, when that game, if that game gets started, we'll send those of you scheduled to have that game in your area for the Mariners and the Orioles. And now taking over on the mound, right-hander John Frascatore.
Frascatore, a sinker slider pitcher. Normally you would anticipate a guy like him with his stuff would be more effective against the right-handed hitters, but that has not been the case this year. Left-handed batters hitting only .244 against Frascatore. Right-handers .301. He has not allowed an earned run in his last 5 ball games, spanning 7 innings.
Big crowd here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis tonight, and not pleased with the goings-on right now. Hometown Cardinals Cardinals trailing 6-2 in the top of the 6th inning. It's been a rough year for St. Louis. A lot of people picked this team to represent the National League in the World Series. Yet the best they have been record-wise is 500 for the entire year. And it's been miserable since the All-Star break. 13-20. 2-8 over their last 10. And 11 games under 500 despite the fact that they brought over Mark McGwire. Louis Lopez will come on to pinch hit for Sean Gilbert. Lopez at 264, 9 runs batted in. And takes outside for a ball. The Cardinals were even at 500 on July the 2nd. And they felt like they were ready to make a serious run at the division title. But since that date, their high water mark for the year, Tony La Russa's team, 13-24. And really, when you look back on this season, a couple of series when they were hammered by, of all teams, Philadelphia.
Well, Tommy, I got to tell you, I was one of those people that thought the Cardinals, if not winning at all in the National League, were certainly going to win their division and go into postseason play. I just felt that with a full year under his belt here in St. Louis, Tony La Russa knew what he had available in the minor leagues. He knew what he had available at the major league level and would mold that team into a division winner. But you mentioned the injuries certainly were a factor, but they just have not played up to their capabilities, with the exception of Langford and DeShields.
2-2 the count on Lopez. And a fastball misses inside. Full count.
Of course, in their 10 meetings between these two teams, the Mets have beaten the Cardinals 8 out of those 10 games.
Second, Pratt, a run in, 3-2 pitch with 1 out, and he struck him out swinging. 2 away. As Frascatori retires Lopez off the New York bench, and now will face Ordonez.
Lopez came off the bench to hit. I don't think he swung at a strike the entire at bat. It's a breaking ball that doesn't break, hangs up around the letters outside. Lopez swings and misses. He also chased a pitch down and in, chased a pitch down and away. Makes it tough to hit when you don't swing at strikes.
Real tough.
It's tough enough to hit when you do swing at strikes.
Ordonez a bunt single for an RBI and scored on the Alfonso grand slam in the 5-run New York 5th inning. They've added another here in the 6th and lead 6-2.
And with 2 outs in the inning, the Cardinals not anticipating a bunt this time from Ordonez. Both corners, McGwire at first, Gaetti at third, playing very deep. Would be a cheap base hit, but it would just set it up for Bobby Jones, the pitcher. And Ordonez is probably going to try to drive that run in. This is what we were talking about earlier. As a number 8 hitter, you have to know when the opposition is going to go after you, when are they going to pitch around you, when should you take the walk, when should you go out of the strike zone.
1-1 on Ordonez, and he takes a strike on the outside edge.
That's my way of looking at it is if you try to bunt for a base hit, of course now there's 2 strikes, you wouldn't think about it now, but if he would have bunted for a base hit and reached base, you get Bobby Jones out of the way this inning and have the top of the order coming up next inning.
On the ground at DeShields, and the inning is over. But not before they knock Osborne out of the game, getting another run on a hit, leaving one after 5.5. New York leads by 4. 6-2 ball game. New York in front as the Cardinals bat in the home half of the 6th inning. Fox Sports News. You want to tune in. It'll take you one step beyond. We have in-depth interviews, analysis from around the world of sports, live on site covering your home teams. That's why at Fox Sports News only we can say we are there. Tonight after the game with my good buddy, Susie Colbert. Louis Lopez remains in the game to play second base.
You and Susie are tight, huh?
Got to meet Susie at the Fox NFL football seminar a couple of weeks ago. Very talented young lady. And also a lot of fun. Always nice when you see somebody on the air. You know, you see somebody on TV or whatever, and you think, well, they seem like a nice person. Then you meet them and you find out that is the case. It's always a bummer the other way.
Well, that's good to hear. I've been watching Susie. I'll take your word for it. Hopefully someday I'll get to meet her. Now, of course, I don't hang around with the same people you do.
You've got that right. Breaking ball, dribbled foul. You're running around with the likes of Harrison Ford and you know, Wesley Snipes, guys like that.
Yeah, Harrison Ford's driver and Wesley Snipes' gardener. That's who I hang out with.
Ronnie Gant quickly behind 0-2. He's 1 of 2. Struck out his last trip. Down to Alfonso, who should get him. No, he can't find the handle. And the throw is late. That'll be an error on Alfonso. You would assume he had it in more than enough time, but just couldn't get a grip on the baseball.
He went into the glove the first time, and it looked like he came out with a pretty good handle on the ball, but then he had to double clutch. Gant swinging at a breaking ball low and outside. Yeah, right there as he brought the ball up in a position to throw. Realized he did not have a good grip. There you can see it getting away from him. Tries to regather himself and still put something on that throw. We mentioned the strong arm Alfonso has, but not enough to overcome the speed of Ron Gant.
That's an infield hit. Gary Gaetti, a check swing and a miss. He went around. He's behind 0-1. Gaetti robbed of a hit on a diving play made in center field by Brian McRae back in the second inning. And then a routine fly ball at Brian in the fourth. On the outside corner, a strike, 0-2.
Well, you might have seen that pitch 83 miles an hour from Bobby Jones. He's not overpowering by any stretch of the imagination. His fastball is probably his second or third best pitch, but usually he puts it in a location just like right there, outside and low to Gaetti in a position where they can't hit it hard. You know, it might seem hard to believe that a major league hitter can be jammed with an 83-mile-an-hour fastball, but if you put it in the right location after setting it up, it looks much faster than the 83, and you can jam big league hitters with a mediocre fastball.
Jones trying to win, as we brought up earlier, for the first time since the 20th of June. On that day, he beat the Pirates. 8 innings, 8 2/3 innings of 6-hit shutout baseball to go 12-3. Now, he missed outside, 2-2. He lost a couple in a row. Had 4 straight no decisions. Lost 2 more against San Diego and Houston. And a no decision his last time out against Houston. And he's 12-7 coming into the game tonight. That just missed inside. 3-2 to Gaetti. Fly ball into short right field. Husky is there, and getting back to the bag is Ron Gant. Talking about Cleveland and their struggles earlier tonight against Detroit. Nothing wrong with this. Jim Thom, a 2-run home run. It put Cleveland ahead 7-1, and they never looked back. The Tribe rolls over Detroit 12-1. The final score. Charles Nagy getting his 12th win. And you see Chicago is in action. And right now trailing Oakland 5-4 at the end of 5. So Cleveland picks up a half game on Chicago, 3-up. A Chicago win, and the White Sox stay 2.5 back.
User himself was a fine fielding first baseman for the White Sox. Has been making hay against their own division. For Detroit in the Eastern Division. Against the Central, Cleveland 21-9 this year. They have sub-500 records against the East and the West, so they're making up all their ground against teams in their own division.
Saw where Milwaukee acquired former Cy Young Award winner Mark Davis from the Arizona Diamondbacks today in a trade. Davis was signed and worked his way up all the way from single A ball in the Diamondbacks organization. Worked out an agreement with the Tucson club just down the road from Phoenix. And Davis was having a good year and appears to be fully healthy for the first time in a couple of seasons. And Milwaukee felt like they could use him right now. To Pagnazzi. High fly ball lifted into deep left field. Gilkey drifting back at the track and has room at the wall.
But Pagnazzi just missed a hanging curveball there from Bobby Jones. Pitch was just high enough in the strike zone that Pagnazzi couldn't straighten it out. He got under it a little bit too much. You get a real good look at the swing there. Full extension at the point of contact. At that time, he knows it's got a chance, but he's not quite sure, and Gilkey runs back to the track and hauls it in.
So now it'll be John Mabry, who has walked and bounced to short, 0 for 1. Cardinals trailing last to the 6th, with Gant at first and 2 away. 6-2, Mets trying to win the last 2 games of this series after losing the opener on Tuesday night.
This is something that you would not have seen from a Cardinals team in the past, or maybe even a Cardinals team from 1996. Ron Gant with the leadoff base hit, and he's still at first base with 2 outs in the inning, and the number 8 hitter at the plate. Traditionally, Cardinal baseball has been run those bases and run them aggressively.
2-0 to Mabry.
Willie McGee ran the bases a little bit too aggressively last night. Gunned down at home plate. Back end of a double play.
Alex Ochoa showing off that arm of his. Lifted into left field. Easy play for Gilkey, and the inning is over. A leadoff single by Gant. Nothing after that. End of 6. 6-2 New York.
Trades have been made to set the stage as teams gear up for the playoff run on the Fox Saturday Baseball Game of the Week. Pudge and the Rangers battle Tito and the Yankees, or Griffey and the Mariners slug it out with Thomas and the White Sox. Coverage begins within the zone, 12:30 Eastern and Pacific. Check local listings.
Back at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, along with Bob Brenly, I'm Thom Brennaman. Our entire Baseball Thursday Fox Sports Net crew, and a 6-2 New York lead at the end of 6. Carlos Baerga given the night off. Likewise for slugger Todd Hundley. No problem for Bobby Valentine. Jones to begin things against reliever John Frascatore here in the 7th. Frascatore took the ball in the 6th inning after Donovan Osborne went 5 1/3, allowing 7 hits and 6 earned runs. In there, a fast strike. You know, we'd like to wish a happy birthday to our longtime buddy Jay Horwitz, Director of Media Relations and the Associate Travel Director of the New York Mets. Jones on the ground at Clayton. 1 away. Jay's a good man. Get a lot of laughs from him through the years and does a terrific job for the Mets. There he is.
Hey, that's a tough job, too. You know, anytime you deal with the media on a daily basis, especially in the city of New York, you're going to have your work cut out for you, and Jay handles it like a champ.
Boy, he really does.
He's trying to figure out why he was on television.
Oh, he knows. You know, we should have done something kind of nasty to him. He's a guy that, once every blue moon, as Brian McRae takes outside, he'll put something in the notes, like Brian McRae, just for example. He'll say, well, we all know that his father, Howe, was a great major league player, but did you know that his great-great-great-great-grandfather was one of, who knows, the guys who helped invent electricity with Benjamin Franklin, for example. That's a far stretch, but it'll be something along those lines. He's related to this person or is the distant cousin of that person, and there's not a degree of truth in it. And he does it to find out how many of the announcers or how many of the writers will either talk about it during the broadcast or write about it the next day in the notes column.
Or just to see if they even read the notes.
Exactly right.
Checking.
Edgardo Alfonso, a big night tonight for the Mets. Brian McCray chops it foul wide of first.
And we've just received word, apparently the Seattle-Baltimore game is not to be tonight. Apparently they couldn't remedy that problem with the lights that they were having, delaying the start of the game, and obviously it's something that they're not going to be able to repair anytime soon, so that game has been blacked out. And we'll get a word from Kenny and Jeff as to the status, how that game is going to be made up a little bit later.
Swing and a miss. McCray out of there on strikes. Edgardo Alfonso came to the plate with the bases loaded and 2 out. A 1-0 New York lead in the 5th, and delivered this.
That was after fouling off a tough breaking ball from Donovan Osborne. Osborne tried to come back with another breaking ball, but hung it up over the inside part of the plate, and Alfonso took care of it.
Strike one to Alfonso, who now has 8 home runs, 55 batted in, and the batting average at .315. High bouncing ball. McGuire able to reach up and get it, but then can't pull it out of his mitt. Well, this will more than likely be a hit, and it is.
As I mentioned earlier, usually what an official scorekeeper will determine, base hit or an error, is did the guy have to make an unusual play, or was it a routine play that he booted? I think you'd have to say that Mark McGuire went above and beyond there, jumping high in the air, backing away from the play as he tried to dig the ball out of his glove. That one I can live with. The ground ball to third base last inning, Alfonso bobbled and threw late to first. That one I don't buy.
I'm with you. Alfonso aboard as John Olerud takes down low for a ball. Alfonso just 23 years young, a native of St. Teresa, Venezuela. And barring injury, he'll be around a long time to come. Olerud, nothing at 3. And now has a base hit into center field, making the turn, and coming to third is Alfonso, bobbled by Langford in center, and he'll get there safely. Alfonso putting the pressure on the defense and makes it pay by advancing on to third and perhaps forcing Langford into an early bobble.
We'll never know for sure unless we talk to Ray Langford, but you certainly like to see this kind of aggressive base running from a young player. Alfonso sees the base hit up the middle. He runs hard from first to second base. You can see him motoring right there. Just a slight hesitation as he hit the bag. Comes hard to third base because he saw Langford bobble the ball in center. He had thoughts of scoring on that play if Langford had any trouble picking up the ball in center field.
Olerud, his first hit. Hit the ball hard on 3 occasions tonight. Now something to show for it. Here's Husky. 0 for 2 has walked and scored and takes low for a ball. Mets looking to add to a 6-2 lead here in the 7th. Two on, 2 out. And Husky drives it into right field. Mabry shy of the track makes the play to end the inning. 2 hits, 2 left. Go to the bottom of the 7th in St. Louis. Mets 6, Cardinals 2. Beautiful look at Busch Stadium and downtown St. Louis, Missouri, along the banks of the Mississippi. Busch Stadium. A round of applause for Willie McGee, who pinch hits for John Frascatore, leading off the 7th inning. McGee, part of the great St. Louis teams in the mid-'80s, late '80s, smoked over to Olerud, and he cannot get to the bag, and Jones wasn't over there in time to cover. That'll be an infield hit, and not very good defense from Bobby Jones.
A serious mental lapse from Bobby Jones. From the first day of spring training in February, pitchers work on this almost daily. Get over there, get over there, get over there. Any ball hit to your left as a pitcher, you're responsible to cover first base. Jones caught napping that time. No chance for Olerud to beat McGee to the base. Goes as an infield hit.
So now the top of the order, Delino DeShields clubbed a 2-run home run to the second deck in right field his last trip in the 5th. Mets leading 6-2 in the 7th. McGee aboard with a leadoff hit.
DeShields showing bunt there on the first pitch. I don't think he really had any intention of bunting. He just wants to plant the seed in Edgardo Alfonso's mind, force him to come in a little bit shallower at third. You see where he's playing right now. Then if DeShields gets a pitch on the outside part of the plate, he can try to slap it by the third baseman into left field.
One 1-0 on DeShields. And it's low. 2 balls and no strikes. Well, the New York Mets made the big deal with the Cubs to shore up their bullpen. They have a terrific closer in John Franco, but had trouble getting from the starters to Franco. This could be 2. Jones to second for 1. Ordonez a turn, and that's a double play. Ordonez took a low throw from Jones, but was able to handle it. And just so fluid, fires on to first for the double play.
Well, you wonder how a middle infielder can protect themselves against a sliding runner. This is it right here. Jones gives him a low feed, so he really doesn't have a lot of alternatives. But by throwing that ball from down underneath, he forces Willie McGee to get down early, start his slide early to avoid getting hit in the forehead with this relay throw. That gives Ordonez enough of a lane to make the throw to Olerud at first and complete the double play. They call that the low bridge. And Ordonez has learned it at a very early age. That's one of the few defense mechanisms you have as a middle infielder, is throwing that ball from down underneath, forcing that runner to slide early.
That'll get you in the bridge if you don't get out of the way.
You got that right.
You ever had that happen to you? Get fired and hit you in the face?
Well, I've been accused of being hit in the face with a ball a few many times, but I don't ever recall it happening. One of the best ever was Manny Trio, great second baseman for years and years. Played with the Giants towards the end of his career. He was great at that.
Fly ball at Husky and right off the bat of Clayton, and the inning is over. 1 hit, nobody left. 7 innings in the books. 6-2. The Mets lead St. Louis. 6-2 in New York in front of St. Louis as we move to the top of the 8th inning. You can catch baseball action with Major League Monday on FX. And this Monday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, Junior and the Mariners head to the Windy City to take on Frank Thomas and the White Sox. Again, that's Monday, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Major League Monday. FX, our sister station on the cable side. They've been talking about his defense even before he reached the major leagues in New York.
It takes a tough feed from the pitcher Bobby Jones down around his ankles. He's able to stay with the ball and turn it. I think a nice double play. You see Mark Petkazik, the right-hander, now on the mound for the Cardinals. His numbers on the season. Power sinker. That's his best pitch by far. Pitcher would bear down and into a right-handed hitter, down and away from a left-handed hitter. Usually gets a lot of ground balls. Tony La Russa has asked him to start twice this year because of injuries and rotation problems.
On the ground off the bat of Gilkey, and throwing him out is Clayton. The Cardinals and the Mets certainly sit on different sides of the fence in so many ways. Talked about preseason expectations. Well, you still have to play the season. And while the Mets have been one of the great stories in all of baseball, 3 games behind Florida in the wild card race coming into play tonight. It could be 2.5 with a win. Conversely, St. Louis has to rank among the more disappointing teams in all of baseball. And again, some would say injuries, and yes, they have been a factor. But it's a team from an offensive standpoint that has just simply not gotten it done. 2-0 on Todd Pratt.
A team can normally carry 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 players who are having subpar seasons if the rest of their guys play up to their capabilities. And it sounds like a broken record, but with the exception of DeShields and Langford, the entire Cardinal team has put up numbers that are not anywhere near their career averages. I'm not talking about having a great year, a 40 home run year by Ron Gant. If he just had a normal 23 to 25 home run season like you would expect from Ron Gant. Gary Gaetti stuck on 12 home runs. You mentioned he hasn't had an extra base hit in a month. Guys just aren't doing what they're capable of doing. Forget having a career year. Just do what you're capable of doing. And McGuire, other than the home runs that you've mentioned, Tommy, he's hit 4 since coming to the Cardinals. He hasn't really provided any other offense other than that.
3-1 to Pratt, and he fouls it straight back. They've gotten much better offensive production out of second base than they had a year ago when they came to within a game of representing the National League in the World Series. Delino DeShields has been just terrific. Royce Clayton has had a dramatically different kind of a year. A lot more extra base hit power, but the average is down as Pratt has gone on strengths.
Look at this turbo sinker here from Mark Petkaizik. You can see that ball diving down and in. Pratt swings right over the top of it. It's a tough pitch to handle. That's a pitch you see a lot of right-handed batters foul off of their ankles or their foot. That's why so many guys wear those shin guards in the game nowadays. Pitchers like Petkaizik with that good sinker force you to hit the top part of the ball, and a lot of times you don't even get it into the infield. You just ground it right into the batter's box.
Lopez came on as a pinch hitter, struck out back in the 6th inning. You know, St. Louis is a team 12th in the National League in average. The only teams that have hit worse than the Redbirds are Philadelphia and Cincinnati. They rank 12th in the league in runs. And yet pitching number 3, only to Atlanta and the Dodgers. And defensively, they're about the middle of the pack. 2-1 on the ground at DeShields. And a 1-2-3 8th inning for Petkaizik. Cardinals bat in the bottom of the 8th with room to make up. They trail by 4.
The preceding message was furnished by Major League Baseball.
You're watching Fox Sports Net.
New York 6, St. Louis 2 as we head for the bottom of the 8th. In Chicago, the A's and the White Sox. Bases loaded. Brian Lesher at check swing. A roller at second baseman Ray Durham, who throws it away. 2 runs coming to score. And Oakland leads in the 7th. 7-5. Taking over on the mound, we talked about the big trade between the Mets and the Cubs. And part of that trade, right-hander Turk Wendell.
And probably one of the more unsung guys in the trade, but you and I have talked, Tommy. We both think that this Turk Wendell is going to make a big difference in the pennant race for the Mets. He's a guy that can eat up innings in the middle. He can start if you need him to. He can close if you need him to, although you wouldn't figure he's going to close many games with John Franco and Mel Rojas. Sinker, slider, change-up pitcher, very aggressive. Where's number 99? He wanted to make sure he got a number that nobody would take from him. Guys get traded from team to team and ask for their number when they come to the new ball club, and He wanted to make sure to get a number nobody would take away from him.
Wendell, originally an Atlanta Brave, was traded to the Cubs and really burst on the scene for more of his superstitions and with his ability to retire batters on the mound. 1-1. He has all kinds of crazy things he does. He leaps over the baselines as he's coming out from the dugout. Back in his starting days, doesn't have to worry about it much coming from the bullpen, but he will do it leaving the field. Chews a great deal of licorice, will brush his teeth in between innings. That one taken outside to Langford, 3-1. A very religious young man is Turk Wendell, and he'll draw the crucifix 3 times the back of the mound as he walks Langford to begin the inning, and then actually licked the dirt off of his fingers. Cubs told him to give some of that stuff a rest until he started to get people out. And he eventually did just that. He was the Cubs' main closer last year. This copyrighted telecast is presented by authority of the Commissioner of Baseball and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without written consent.
Well, the Cubs felt that perhaps he was taking too much of his concentration and way too much of his time dealing with his superstitions as opposed to bearing down on the hitter that he was trying to get out.
Sort of ironic, the Cubs would be the organization to tell him to give the superstitions a rest. They still talk about a billy goat jinxing the Cubs going back to 1945, their last appearance in a World Series.
The Billy Goat curse.
Yes. When a local restaurateur as Mark McGuire settles in. Local restaurateur who had season tickets the entire year at Wrigley Field and was bringing his goat to the games. All of a sudden the World Series came around and they wouldn't let the goat come in the ballpark. Swing and a miss by McGuire. It's 1-2.
Well, did the goat actually have a seat?
Yes, had a ticket.
Well, then how can they prevent the goat from coming in?
They did, and they ain't been back to a World Series since. 1-2 to McGuire. And time was called before the pitch.
Man, it was a tough pitch by Turk Wendell. Good hard slider, low and away. Mark McGuire, we said it earlier in the ball game, he's off that plate and he's cheating a little bit for anything from the middle of the plate in. And if you can throw good pitches low and on the outside part of the plate, Mark McGuire will usually either get himself out or not even offer at those pitches. But be careful if you catch too much of that plate.
McGuire, 1 of 2 in the game, is singled, walked, and fly to left. And he takes low and outside. Cardinals trying to climb back in it. Bobby Jones goes the first 7 innings. He allows 7 hits and 2 earned runs. 2-2 pitch. Popped up and out of play.
Wendell got away with one right there. Only the sharp movement on that slider allowed Mark McGuire to foul it off. That was a slider that started inside off the plate and was headed for the inside part. Very dangerous territory with Mark McGuire.
2-2 again from Wendell to McGuire. Oh, that one hung up there, and he fouled it straight back.
Well, you can see Todd Pratt is sitting on the outside corner. He wants this slider down low and away. And you can see where Wendell throws this pitch. He hangs it up around the letters on the inside part. Boy, talk about living dangerously, throwing hanging breaking balls to Mark McGuire. Pratt going outside again.
And again, got away from Wendell. 3 balls, 2 strikes. Crowd booing, but that was a breaking ball that just slipped out of his hands.
He's just trying to overthrow that slider. He wants to throw the world's best slider to Mark McGuire. All he needs to do is concentrate on location. Get it on the outside part of the plate, breaking away. Even if it's not the sharpest breaking slider in the world, the location is what's going to get McGuire out.
3-2 pitch. Try to slider again, and McGuire lays off, and Wendell, all of a sudden, has the Cardinals thinking comeback. Walk to Langford, and now McGuire. Greg McMichael begins to loosen.
And I think they've already made the call to the bullpen. Pitching coach Bob Apodaca making the visit to the mound, and about halfway out there, he pointed towards the Mets bullpen, and indeed, it's going to be Greg McMichael.
Tough night for the Turk. We'll take a break. Cardinals have the first two on here in the eighth, trailing by 4. Valentine in the dugout came on, replacing Bobby Jones. Walks the first two in the eighth inning and is back in the dugout in favor of right-hander Greg McMichael.
Well, no secret with McMichael. He throws a fastball, he throws a slider. As you get a look at his numbers on the season, but his best pitch is a straight changeup that he will throw in any count to any hitter in any situation.
McMichael, a long-time Atlanta Braves.
Kirk Wendell talking to Bob Apodaca and Bobby Valentine there. I'm sure they're perhaps questioning the pitch selection. He threw Mark McGwire 5 sliders in a row. Only one of them was in a location that Wendell wanted it, low and away. The rest of them hung up on the inside part of the plate and were fouled off or actually pushed McGwire off the plate. All part of the learning process at the major league level. I don't care how many years you've been playing this game, you can always learn something. Kirk Wendell is learning right now that you're better off challenging hitters when you have a 4-run lead in the ball game than walking them, putting them on base, and allowing the other team to have the opportunity for a big inning.
Boy, Bob Apodaca was a good pitcher. Had a serious arm injury that ended his career, but a lifetime ERA in the major leagues of 2.86. That injury came in the spring of '78. Terrific reliever for the Mets in the mid-'70s. So here's Ron Gant. 2 for 3 in the game. And a high fly ball into left field. Gilkey is there. And quickly 1 out. Gant hit that ball off the end of the bat.
Off-speed pitch from McMichaels, knowing that Ron Gant's a very aggressive first ball fastball hitter. Gant gets just out in front of this pitch far enough to hit it off the end of the bat. Doesn't get the kind of carry you would if you hit it off the screws. And he knows it's got the good line, the good arc, but not enough to get out of here.
Langford at second, McGwire at first. Gant just shaking his head. It's the kind of season it's been for him. Here's Gaetti, 0 for 3. Line to center, fly to center, and popped up to right. Bouncing ball down to Alfonso, steps on the back for 1. Throw to first, and Olerud can't pick it out of the dirt. That should have been a double play to end the inning. And a rare mistake by Edgardo Alfonso on the short throw to Olerud.
Yeah, it looked like he just took a little bit too long lollipopping that throw across the infield. He had plenty of time with Gaetti running. Ball not hit particularly hard, but Alfonso gets to it in good shape, hits the bag for the force. The throw just short hops Olerud to first base. Should have been a better throw. Could have been picked out of the dirt. But the error, well, there won't be an error because you can't assume a double play, but that's a play Alfonso will make 9 times out of 10.
So now it's Pagnozzi with runners at first and second and 2 out. Wendell walked Langford and McGwire to begin the inning, but McMichael gets Gant on a fly ball to left. Gaetti on a fielder's choice. It should have been 2. Good off-speed pitch there by McMichael. It's 0-2 to Pagnozzi.
Well, not only does McMichael have a good changeup, but his delivery, the way he drops down and appears that he's going to throw sidearm, really fools a lot of hitters. He's not a sidearm pitcher. He drops his upper body over as if he's going to throw sidearm, but his arm is at a 3/4 angle when he releases the ball.
Well, what a valuable pitcher guys like Greg McMichael become for teams. Very underrated and often underappreciated. He has appeared in 50 or more games now, 5 consecutive years.
Well, they used to call him the Dirt Man. Dick Tidrow, I believe, was the first one to grab that nickname, the Dirt Man. And you just eat up those innings in the middle of a ball game. Usually you're not involved in a decision. Usually you don't get a save. All you get is innings pitched. But it allows your team, if you can put up zeros, it allows your team to get an opportunity to get back in the ball game, hopefully get a lead, and then you turn it over to your closer who gets all the credit and all the money.
Two on, two out. 1 ball, 2 strike pitch. Swing and a miss on another changeup to end the inning. McMichael, a solid job. We go to the ninth, 6-2 Mets. 6-2 Mets lead, and coming to bat here in the top of the 9th inning. New York trying to pick up a half game in the wild card race on idle Florida. And the Mets would be just 2.5 back. Marlins, as we mentioned earlier, will open a series at home tomorrow night against the Pittsburgh Pirates, while Bobby Valentine's Mets jump on a plane tonight and open a weekend series in Denver. Ray Ordonez to begin the ninth. 1 of 3. Pushed across the first run of the game with a bunt single in the 5th inning. And lines this one back through the middle into center field, his 2nd hit of the night. Franco will come on to hit for Greg McMichael. What a job by McMichael. Came on with runners at first and second, nobody out in the bottom of the 8th, and retired the next 3.
Yeah, Matt Franco pitch hitting. Mel Rojas will be the pitcher in the 9th inning. This will not be a safe situation for Mel Rojas. Bobby Valentine trying to ease him in here with his new ball club. Of course, he has John Franco, the established closer with the Mets.
And Matt Franco, no relation, is the batter. Franco, a good hitter. Very highly thought of prospect in the Cubs organization a couple of years ago. Hits this one into right center field. Langford, did he get it? Yes, he did. What a play by Langford, and they're going to double up Ordonez on the throw at first base. How about that? Langford, just a tremendous athlete, former football star in college.
Oh, to have speed. Langford didn't really appear to have a shot at that ball when it came off the bat. That's what Ordonez thought anyway, because he was off and running when he saw that ball headed for the gap, and Langford cut down the ground between himself and the ball and made a great diving catch. You can see picks that ball right off the turf, gets the ball up in the air to show it to the umpire, and then throws it back to big Mark McGwire at first base for the double play.
Is 1 of 4. Hits this ball hard to right field, and that will sail into the mid of Mabry at the warning track to end the inning. 1 hit, nobody left. Cardinals bat in the bottom of the 9th, trailing New York 6-2. Like to remind you, immediately following the ball game on Fox Sports News, a strange night indeed in Baltimore. Of course, the opening round just outside of New York City of the PGA Championship. And good news, that is good news for the Jaguars quarterback Mark Brunell. All of that and more on Fox Sports News right after the conclusion of this one. Cardinals coming to bat last of the night, trailing 6-2, and now on the pitch. And boy, as he struggled since signing the whopping contract over the winter as a free agent with the Cubs, Mel Rojas.
And you can see the numbers are not very pretty. He did convert 8 of his last 10 save opportunities with the Cubs. And he was on somewhat of a streak over his last 25 games, which spanned 28 in the third innings. He struck out 31 batters, so he was improving with the Cubs, but not the kind of performance they expected when they went out and signed him to the big contract.
Gave up the big home run here last night. Came over in the deal with McRae and Wendell as it's fouled back by John Mabry from the Cubs in exchange for Lance Johnson, Mark Clark, and Manny Alexander. That is now official, by the way, that trade. Originally, it was Lance Johnson and 2 players to be named later. We were talking with our buddy Tim McCarver. He thinks that Manny Alexander is going to be quite the player with the Cubs. That one fouled off and into the seats.
Alexander, a middle infielder, can play short or second. Of course, the Cubs are a little long in the tooth at both those positions. Ryan Sandberg retiring at the end of this year, and Sean Dunson, the incumbent shortstop. I'm sure Alexander will get in that lineup somewhere up in there.
Oh, yeah. 0-2 to Mabry. Struck him out. And that's what the Mets are hoping that Rojas can find again. That out pitch, the nasty fork ball.
The good fork ball that starts in the strike zone and then drops out of the zone as the batter starts to swing at it. Rojas threw too few of these pitches for the Cubs. More often than not, this pitch started up around the belt and fell right down into the hitting zone. But as you can see from that pitch, great action, drops right out of the zone, gets Mabry to swing and miss.
Thom Lampkin to pinch hit for the pitcher, Petkazik, and he's quickly down a strike. Mets lost the opener when they couldn't finish off St. Louis late in the game. That was on Tuesday night. Outlasted the Redbirds in a game they probably could have and should have lost. Cardinals failing with a runner at third and only 1 out late in the game when Mabry couldn't get him in. Olerud will feed Rojas in time to retire Lampkin, and the Cardinals are down to their final out. But tonight, scoreless game through 4 in the 5th. Ordonez a bunt single for the game's first run. And then the big blow, Edgardo Alfonso, a grand slam home run. Cardinals made it 5-2 on a 2-run home run by DeShields in the bottom of the 5th. New York added 1 more run in the 6th. A double by Todd Pratt brought in Butch Husky, and the pitching is taking care of everything from there on. And Bobby Jones about to win his first game since the 20th of June. Boy, if the Mets can get Rojas straightened out to go with McMichael and Wendell getting the ball to John Franco, they're going to have a lot of games like this. Get the starter to go 6-7 strong innings, and then they'll just put it to bed.
They'll just turn it into a 6-inning ball game, and not only would they benefit for the rest of this season, but having 2 legitimate closers in that bullpen would open the way for a possible trade to plug any holes they feel they may have going into next season, if they choose to go that route.
They have Franco under contract again next year. Rojas for 2 more years after this season. That one fouled away, 2-2. For John Franco, people talk about a lot of other guys around baseball when they bring up the best closers. I'm not sure there's anybody better than Franco when you get right down to it. 30 out of his last 34 save opportunities.
I think people don't recognize John Franco as one of the best, even though the numbers would bear it out, is he's not a dominating pitcher. His best pitch is a change-up screwball that he throws in the low 70s. Gets a lot of swinging strikes, a lot of weak grounders, weak pop-ups.
Lined into left field away from Gilkey, who runs it down, and Rojas a perfect 9th inning. And the Mets down the Cardinals. Final score of 6-2. Thanks in large part to that man, Edgardo Alfonso's grand slam home run in a 5-run 5th. Bobby, I asked you earlier, they may be doing it with mirrors, but with a month and a half left, the Mets are right there.
Well, I think as long as the Mets don't look up and try to figure out what it is they're doing right, I think they're going to be fine. They may be doing it with mirrors, but they're getting it done nonetheless.
Stay tuned. Fox Sports News next with continuing coverage of today's stories in sports. Have all the latest scores and highlights. Final score 6-2, Mets over the Cardinals. We'll be right back here to Busch Stadium shortly. Stay with us.